On this week's episode, we are talking about ways to help your fellow friend.
When someone gives you a ride and you can't always give them a ride back, there are ways to give back, and we have some tips.
So, stick around.
Hello, and welcome to Rare with Flair,
The podcast where two best friends with the same rare disease are out here living our best lives. I'm your host, Casey.
and I'm your host, Cassandra. It is still 2025, officially, now that we have recorded this episode. Last time we were recording, it was still 2024, way back when. It's
way back when?
Yeah.
Wow, we've come so far.
We really have. It's only been 2 days.
We rarely record twice in 1 week, so it feels very strange
so
to be like sitting here again like a few days later.
We're like, what do we have to catch up on? But I know.
I know.
How was your New Year, Case?
Oh, my New Year was very fun. Spent it with my friend Ashley, as I normally do. I think I've done that the last few years, and I've probably talked about it on the pod. But we FaceTimed Cass, of course.
Yes.
Had to do that. And so that was great. And you went to a fun party, I think.
I did. One of my friends had a little gathering.
I know. I don't know why I said I think. But you did.
I did. One of my friends had like a little gathering at her apartment, and it was really cute and cozy. And very low key, which is great because I sometimes feel like there's a lot of expectation on New Year's Eve that you gotta like have a really great time and it's gotta be awesome. And you know what?
Yeah.
I think a nice low key time where people just munched on some chips and chit chatted, like that was lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. I like a low key New Year for sure.
It was fun.
Yeah. Really fun.
Wow. But I still got to dress up. I love dressing up on New Year's just to like still feel like I'm really like giving it my all to say goodbye to the old year, if you will.
Yeah, I like that.
It's fun.
Very nice. I stayed cozy, but I see the appeal of dressing up as well.
That's
I
fair.
think New Year's is a weird holiday. It could go either way,
Truly,
I think, you know?
Truly.
But yeah, I like that. Very nice.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Wow. See, this is the thing. We recorded like 3 days ago in the current timeline, right? Not for you listeners, but like, we're like, well, I guess that's it.
Well, I guess we could jump in. Not much to report here. But yeah, I think this will be really a fun episode. Cass and I were just talking before we started recording this episode that we made an episode a while back. Definitely couldn't tell you the number if I wanted to. But it was about feeling like a burden sometimes. Sometimes as people with a disability, we can't always do everything that an able-bodied person can do. And sometimes we do need assistance, and that can make you feel like a burden. This episode, we're going to like answer the question of, well, if you feel like a burden, how do you maybe even that out? How do you make yourself feel like you are helping as well? So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. It's going to be a little more positive.
Yeah. And
more positive spin.
And like a lot of that feeling like a burden episode was revolving around the fact that Casey and I do not drive. And we get a lot of rides from people in our lives, friends, family, whatever. And, you know, sometimes we said in that episode, not to rehash too much of it, but sometimes like if people give you rides too many times, it has this weird effect where people forget your autonomy just because you can't drive somewhere. And
Correct.
I think this not only shows your appreciation for their kindness, going out of their way potentially to give you a ride, but also it sort of, I don't even want to say this because it sounds more aggressive, but it takes the power back in a way that it shows that you can still care for people.
Yes.
Even though you're never going to be able to pick them up, right?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with what you're saying, and I think it makes us feel empowered as disabled people, that we are not just helpless and we're not the ones that need help all the time, and we can show people love. And there are so many ways to show people love and help people that aren't, that, you know, our main barrier is the non-driving. Most things we can do in our own way. Right. Our main barrier is not driving, and there are a lot of ways that you can help that don't involve driving. And if you need to go see someone, you can always Uber, of course, or something like that. It's not like we're stranded at home. But yeah, we're going to talk about a lot of those ways that we give back and that we feel that we can. And we hope it inspires you all listening, if you're just disabled, to maybe get some ideas from us to pull your weight in the relationship or whatnot. So
yeah. And so, okay. So I had met up with my old O&M instructor back, like, from high school. I mean, not that she's ancient, okay? She's lovely. But I had met up with her some months back. I want to say August. So it was a while ago now. But it was great to catch up with her. And she reminded me of this. And sometimes I think I want to address, before we even get into some of the recommendations, ways that we can even approach the subject. Because sometimes, I don't know if I'm sure this has happened to you, where you have offered something to someone and they're like, no, don't worry about it. And then you feel weird and you're like, okay, but should I push the issue? And she gave me some really great, like, tools, like, words to use, right? And this is what I've said pretty much since then, whenever I've wanted to give back to someone, so that, like in that episode we discussed, we don't want people to feel like they're a taxi or an Uber either, that it's all transactional and we're paying them for a service, because they are our friends.
Yes, and that gets kind of strange if you're paying your friends all the time to do things. That's a little...
Right. But we don't want to take advantage of people. It's like a weird balance to strike.
Right. It is definitely a balance to strike, for sure. So, and you kind of learn as you get older how to do it.
Oh, absolutely. And, it really does depend the situation. But one kind of phrase that has worked really well for me is, I offer something and people are like, no. And then I say something along the lines of, like, I hear that and I know that you're not an Uber, but I know that I'm never going to be able to pick you up in a situation like this.
Right.
So let me give back to you. And usually people, like, allow me to then help care for them or buy them something, just because they know that I want to help them too. And I'll never be able to do it in the same way, and I'm acknowledging that, right?
Right. I like that you're acknowledging the elephant in the room of, like, listen, I know it's weird. I know you're not an Uber, but I want to do this for you. I like that.
And people, and, like,
you might as well.
If they really do care about you, like, they will let you care for them.
Yeah. And here's the thing. When we offer to do things, we want people to let us. Like, and I understand the desire to be like, oh, no, I don't need that, because I've been on the other side of that before, but most of the time I like it when people accept the offer of help, because I'm offering it because I want to do it. Like,
right. It's not an empty offer. It's not like if you're on a date and you're expecting a guy to pay, that you do that reach for your wallet even though you're expecting them to pay. It's not an empty gesture. It really is coming from a place of wanting to care for someone and not wanting to take advantage of their kindness.
Right. Absolutely.
I think one of the easiest ways that I've found to do this is just buying someone something. So, like, especially if, hey, I'm meeting with a friend to get a coffee or brunch or something, I've often bought someone an ice cream. Like, I got a friend a pint of ice cream because we were in a cute grocery store once. I got, I'm trying to think. There was, a pastry at, like, a cafe. Like, hey, I'll get you something, my treat. Like, wherever you're at together, if the activity involves, like, buying food. I bought people adult beverages, this, hey, if you give me a ride to so-and-so's house, I'll buy you your next drink, right? So
right.
It's super easy to do, and you're right there in the moment, and it feels really fresh. And usually, like, I've never found this one as hard to do, just because they're right there, and they're like, oh, okay, I guess thanks, right?
Yeah, that's a very simple one. And that's one that I do often too, especially because I feel like in adult life, you meet friends for coffee a lot, or brunch, or like whatever,
Yeah.
Or like dessert, ice cream, whatever it is. And so a lot of times, especially if you're doing something like coffee, it's just really easy to be like, I'll get your coffee this time since you drove, or, whatever. And it's not something where I necessarily get their coffee every single time, because like you said, we kind of got to strike a balance where, it's not necessarily every time, but it's kind of just like on occasion, if I feel like they've driven a lot lately or something.
Yeah, it feels like hey. Like 3 rides kind of stack up, you know what I mean? Or
exactly.
I had a friend who drove me, this is like back in November, she drove me to a friend's house because it's outside of the range of U-Serve. For those who don't know, it's like a service through my city, and it only takes me around the county. And my friend lives outside the county that we were going to, and so it was kind of a drive. It was like 30 minutes. So I got her something right after that because that was a long drive. But, you know, if it's a pretty short ride or they've given you a few rides in a row, like, it's a nice gesture.
It reminds me of like a punch card. It's like, if you give me 3 rides, you get a free coffee.
Redeem. Don't lose your card.
And truly, it's not that scientific. Like I'm not keeping track of the amount of rides in my head and all of the things. It's just when I'm feeling it, I'm like, I'm gonna do this for them because they have, you know.
And you will feel it. Like you will feel it. The pressure is like, man, I feel like I've been in this person's car a lot lately. Like I really need it. I really want to give them something.
But also the amount of driving. I have some friends that live like a few minutes down the street, and it's still really, really sweet of them to pick me up, of course. But if someone is coming out a really long way, you know, that definitely makes you feel even more like you need to help out, because that actually costs gas money. You know, like not that the other one doesn't, but if it's like 3 minutes, you don't feel quite as bad on a money level.
And I sometimes compare it to like what I would have paid for an Uber. Like I'm still saving a ton of money.
I completely see that.
My friend who drove me 30 minutes up to our other friend's house and back, it's like practically 30 minutes each way. It's quite a drive. But I literally was I tried to get her something else when we went out for coffee another time afterward, but she only wanted a pastry, and I paid for it. But that pastry cost maybe $7. It was a nice cafe. And that Uber would have, like, that round trip would have cost me like $80, I'm positive.
Oh, easy. And like we're not over here paying for gas or car insurance or any of that stuff either, so we can think of it like that, of like, this is some extra money for rides.
I literally take the money out of my budget for transportation when I pay someone back for a ride, because that's what it is.
That's what it is, totally. That's how it works in my brain too. I'm like, this is gas money. Like,
this is what I would have spent on my Uber there.
Yep. Definitely. So that's a really great way. And I know to kind of go on to the next one, which is kind of in the same vein, I know you've also done gift cards for people before.
I find this really easy because I find this especially helpful for when you're getting a ride from a house to a house or something that you're not going for food, right? And it is one of those things where they've done this a good bit, right? I have a friend who has taken me from our church community group like 3 times. And we just basically go from the house of whoever's hosting back to my place. And I haven't yet been able to meet up with her to hang out, but she's just been there and offered, and it's been really sweet. And so I have just a little stack where I keep my keys of $5 Starbucks gift cards. And I replenish them periodically. I get maybe 5-10 at a time. But sometimes when something happens like that, or someone really helped me with a huge favor, I hand them a gift card. I'm like, I don't know if you like coffee, but this is for Starbucks. You can buy yourself a sandwich. I have no idea.
That's a great idea.
But it's super handy.
I need to start doing that. That's a really great idea.
And they never expire. Like, I bought these like a few years ago, maybe a year or 2 ago, and I still have them.
Right. That's a great idea. Because on occasion, we were talking about this, on occasion I'll Venmo somebody some money. And I think the Starbucks thing maybe feels a little better for some reason. Sometimes just giving money feels a little more like a service instead of a gift. Like Starbucks feels more like a gift than like, hey, here's $5. Because you don't want people to feel like they are a taxi service and you're paying them. But at the same time, it's totally fine every so often to give someone some gas money, even if it is just money on Venmo. Like, I think that's totally acceptable.
Yeah.
But usually I like it to be like a thing, like a coffee or a whatever, more than just like money, you know?
Right. It's like an exchange of goods, if you will.
Sure.
Of goods for a service. And I've done Venmo before as well, but I think it's mostly for if a friend is like carpool driving a group of people to somewhere, right? So I went to Red River Gorge with some friends, and a lot of people were in that car. And I asked the driver of the car, my friend, I was like, hey, can I give you some money for gas? And even if no one else in the car did, I at least paid a little bit to him because he did all the driving and he paid for the gas. And he found that was really nice and appreciated it because I think not everyone offered. But also, one time I had a friend and we went to this like plant nursery. This is back in like September, August maybe, and it's pretty far out. It's like almost an hour drive from Columbus. And so she loves to drive, and so it was not a trip for her that she didn't like to make, and she was excited to go. But I wanted to get her something, and it didn't really work out, and I kind of forgot also. So when I got home, I Venmoed her like $20 because I was like, here's a plant.
You know, that's a great idea.
It sometimes, it varies the situation, but it occasionally helps.
Yeah, totally.
Because, I don't know, especially if it's for something that you, like, wanted them, or wanted to pay for them, I guess. Trying to pick my words.
Yeah, well, no, and I like what you said about the trip, because that is the one time I pay cash for every time. Is like, if I'm going on a road trip with friends, we usually actually keep track of it. Like, when we go to the gas station and fill up at the beginning of the trip,
they keep the receipts.
I will pay half. Like, we will, like, just keep the receipts for the whole trip or whatever, of whatever we're paying for. So that, and I think, like, that's a common thing for even sighted people to do.
It's a common thing that people do, but not everyone offers. And also, sighted people, if you're listening, you better offer to pay for your friend's gas that's driving 100%. I mean,
because if you're on a road trip with like 3 or 4 people and you're driving in one person's car and it's that person doing the driving, well, then you all should pitch in for gas.
Right.
Like, that's just common knowledge.
That's just courtesy. Like, you're not driving.
Yeah, right. That's not even like a disability thing. That's just like a normal thing, I think. So, yeah, totally.
Right. But I think people, when it's a really long drive, or even like an hour out of your way, like, it is really helpful. But another thing you can do, and that I do with more frequency, is also like making something for someone, cooking or baking. I do this with my family because I live about an hour from my parents. I like to see them, and they like to come see me. But let's face it, it's like a lot of time for them on the road. And so I try to make them food. Or I pay for my mom's coffees when she comes, or something like that, because I know it's out of their way. Or like, even for a service, like my dad has helped me put up light fixtures and I buy pizza, right? Like,
yeah,
it's just a nice thing to do when someone is getting far out of their way. And I think like a meal is a nice thing to receive, or even just like some muffins or something.
Yeah, especially, too, if you made the meal or, like, baked the thing. I think that feels really personal and really sweet for people. And I love baking for people. So that's a way that we feel that we can really give back in a special way.
Yeah. And, like, even if someone has to maybe go out of their way to pick up the meal, right? Because I had a friend who had a death in her family, and we did a meal train for her. And I could have just given her money to, like, Panera or something. But I really wanted to cook her food, and so she just came to my house on her way home from work and picked up some food, and I think ended up enjoying it. But, I still wanted to give her that touch, even though I sent her a little out of her way. It was a home-cooked meal.
Oh, well, I would definitely, I mean, if I could drive, I would definitely rather drive to get an already made meal than make it myself. Like, I mean, like, you're, like, yeah, definitely, I think that's worth it. So that is a really nice way to do it. And I was thinking of another one so Cass and I both have a lot of friends that don't live near us, like live hours and hours away across the country. And I think it's pretty cool. I think flying is a cool way to feel independent, because we can't drive to people's houses. We can Uber to people's houses, but if they live over an hour or so away, you know, at that point we can't, you know.
Right.
So the fact that we can fly to people makes me feel like they're not always coming to me. Like I'm
Right.
making the effort to come to them sometimes too. And it makes me feel like independent. Like I'm going to them by myself. Like I don't need help. Like I'm getting there and I can do that just as easily as they can get to me. So that's pretty fun.
Right. Yeah. My brother lives in Arkansas and I don't really get to see him that much, and they come up more than I go to them, partially because they know more people here anyway and they can drive. But
Right.
I'm hoping to visit them at some point next year because I haven't seen them in their home in a bit, and I think it's just it's fun and it's exciting to be able to, you know, not always be forcing people to come to you, even though it is easier for them than it would be for us, I guess. So
Yeah. And a lot of times they don't mind, but it's just a nice way to
But
be
I
able
love to fly. And also, you know,
Yeah.
same thing when you visit someone and you stay at their house. Like, this is just another common courtesy thing. Like, definitely don't forget a host gift.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Bring them some homemade cookies or, I don't know, a bottle of wine if you're of age. Like,
Totally. Yep,
it's just a nice thing to do.
definitely.
But when you can't fly and you want to care for someone, whether they're literally next door to you or far away, something that we've also done a good amount of is shipping people things. So
Yes.
delivery orders, oh my gosh, they're kind of at their peak, and it has been so fun and helpful for me when a friend is down or recovering with something, or like I can send them a box of crumble cookies or a little gift box
Yes.
from like
You did that
Harry
for me one
and David.
time.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's so true.
I was having a really bad day once, and Cass sent me crumble, and yeah, it really just makes you feel so great when you're able to do that for someone, or when someone does that for you.
It's so helpful, and like you've done that before for people too who were sick.
Yeah, I've sent, like, one of my friends got sick, and I've sent like medicine to her, or like, you know, you can send a meal to someone, or that kind of stuff. And I
Yeah.
mean, you and I just send each other little gifts all
We
the time, you know,
totally
just
do.
not even because of anything sometimes, but it's nice when people are like maybe struggling in a bad time.
Yeah.
To be able to do that, even if you can't like physically go to their door easily. I mean, we could still get to their door if we needed to, but especially if they're like far away,
Right.
it's just easier to be like, hey, I'm
think-
gonna order this thing.
As like if since we're in the mood for giving tips, I think some of the best ways that you can do this, maybe through services, are like Crumble is really easy. Panera has really great delivery options. Harry and David have good gift box ideas.
Yeah.
What else? I mean, you can always just ship someone a gift, but if you want it to arrive
Sure.
rather quickly, you can like Instacart shipped, DoorDash.
Yeah, totally.
Any other ones that you can think of?
No, those are the ones.
No.
Those are the go-tos for me.
Yeah, actually, you know what? When I was in a relationship a few years ago, around my birthday, I got the guy I was dating sent me ice cream, which was like my
Aw.
love language. So like even that, right? Like
Yeah.
that's so sweet and fun, and it's exciting for someone to open their door and find something that brightens their day or meets their needs.
Yeah, or flowers, or
Yeah.
there's so many. I mean, you can send anything to someone's door nowadays. Like, it's
You
great for us.
can.
I mean, we say this all the time on this podcast, but we're really in an amazing time for delivery and home delivery, and just you can buy anyone anything and have it at their door in a day,
Yeah.
like pretty much. So
Amazon.
that's amazing. It makes us feel like we're able to gift people things without going somewhere to buy it physically. So,
Yeah, it's awesome. I think
pretty amazing.
also, acts of service. It's harder for us to do acts of service, I will say, but depending on
Yeah.
the situation, you can really help someone out, especially if you know anyone with kids. They always want help. Like, they're never really going to turn down help.
Yeah.
I once heard, I think this was from Platonic, maybe. I don't know, maybe this will ring a bell for you, of just like a way to meet someone's needs. Wash their towels. People aren't picky about the way that you wash towels. People are more picky about clothing settings, and you don't want to ruin someone's clothes. But like their towels is fine. You can just throw them in the laundry. Like,
yeah. I don't remember that from Platonic, but I don't not remember it.
Right?
You know what I mean? It definitely could have been in there.
I heard it from somewhere.
But I think that's great advice. I think when you're trying to do something for someone too, a lot of times don't give them options. Don't be like, would you rather me do this?
Yes,
this,
that's
or this?
such a good point.
Just be like, hey, I'm sending you this right now.
Yes.
Or I'm doing your laundry. I'm gonna wash your towels, and you don't ask. You just do it, because if you ask, then
people are gonna be more likely to refuse, and it's hard to accept help. But I think it's
right.
I've noticed that a lot. I think I used to ask more. It's more, you just have to force yourself. Like, hey, where's your vacuum? Like,
right. And like, we might not be able to easily go pick up somebody's kids and take them in a car, but we can babysit. Like, hey, drop your kids off at my house for the night or whatever, and I'll take them, and you go have fun or whatever.
Right.
We can do that. We can help clean. We can entertain the kids. And it doesn't have to be people with just kids, but that's just an example of like the ways that we can help. Yeah.
Yeah, I've vacuumed people's homes before, and like I think people just really appreciate it when they're like their hands are full, or you're just trying to be practical and care for others, and there's so many ways to do that, truly.
Yeah. I remember when I got Rupert and he was a puppy, and I didn't sleep for like the first 2 weeks because he was up crying all night. It was miserable. And my friend came over and she was just like, can I do your laundry? Like, she like felt so bad for me. And I'm like, it made me feel like I had like a newborn baby. I totally didn't. But man, puppies are rough. Ugh, rough.
Rough.
Yeah, rough.
I think even also like, still letting yourself be cared for, I think, is important. Because I think, as speaking for myself, as someone with disabilities, plural, I feel a lot of times like I have to show that I am capable, but even so, like, asking for help when you need it is just important, and you can always give back in any of these ways. But I had a friend recently. I had an issue. I had a skin infection, and it was making it really hard for me to walk, and I really, really, really needed some help. And I asked for it, and it was a little bit vulnerable. I'm gonna be real, like.
Yeah, totally.
But I had a friend who was like, what do you need? And I was inclined to say, like, oh, I'm good. But then I thought, I'm like, can you walk my dog, please? Like, I can't do that right now. That's a great thing
to offer, is to walk someone's dog
when
they're
someone's
sick.
dog.
Yes, because my dog's always driving me crazy when I'm sick. He's like, get off the couch, Mom.
Oh, my gosh, especially when you're sick. Like, I had the flu, like, a year ago, and I had to ask some friends. I was like, hey, can you take my dog and let her play with yours for like a couple hours? Just, she's so bored and I feel really bad, but I have no energy, right? So
totally.
It's so, especially if you have a dog and you know that they get along well, like that's a super awesome thing to offer.
Yeah. And it's really like kind of on the contrary too. It's really, because we do deal with some chronic health stuff, it's really nice when we can help other people when they're sick.
That is so true.
If we can be there for them physically, even emotionally, or anything like that, it feels really good, because I feel like a lot of times we feel like the sick one.
Yeah.
So to be able to help someone out. And I think what I was just saying too, like emotionally being there for someone is a whole other way to be there for someone. If you, like, a lot of times people just need a listening ear. You can do that from the comfort of your own home on the phone with someone. You don't have to necessarily, I feel like we feel a lot of guilt for not always physically being there, because it's harder for us sometimes to physically get there. But we can be there. We can support from a distance if needed, and
just
we can
like
support.
Call someone.
Call someone. Be there to listen to their problems. And
multiple backstories involved, but when I was 16, I went to a concert with my brother. I was on a lot of different medications, and I was a little dehydrated, and there was a lot of pot smoke in the air, and it made me pass out. And
oh gosh,
it was like kind of scary. I was 16, but I was with adults. I was with college students, right? And they helped me out to the med tent, and it was kind of a bummer, but we still got to enjoy the show. It was outdoor, which is great, and we still like saw a few of the songs. It was of Monsters and Men, by the way, which
oh stop!
Yeah, I know.
I forgot you saw them.
I did, and that's the concert I passed out in.
Love them.
This is relevant because back in October, I went to a concert with a friend. It was indoors. But, you know, she also has some chronic health needs, and partway through their set, she like taps me on the shoulder and she's like, I'm not feeling the greatest. And I was like, oh no. And it was like, do you need water? And she was like, yeah, I really do. And fortunately, I, one, have done this before, and two,
oh yeah,
I know this venue very well because I go to a lot of concerts. And so,
you're
like,
a concert vet, yes.
I, like, grabbed her arm and I, like, shoved her away through the crowd, and I pointed her to the water fountain. I ran over to the bar and I bought some water bottles, and we just sat and enjoyed the rest of the show, sitting against the back wall on the nice cold ground. And she felt really bad, but she also was like, you know, thanks so much. And I was just, you know, I feel like telling a lot of these stories makes us sound like the heroes, putting them all back to back. But it felt so good that for all the times that people have cared for me, I finally got to tangibly care for someone else because I knew exactly what was going on, and I knew how to help in that situation because we've been there before.
Right. And, you know, a good way to think about that is if you felt so good being able to care for your friend and you felt kind of empowered that you were able to help the situation. If you feel that way, then people probably feel that way when they're helping us too.
Absolutely.
Like they probably feel... Because it makes people feel needed. It makes people feel good about themselves. I mean, let's be real. When you help somebody, it makes you also feel good. And so, I
also like never really. I don't know. People are different, but I never like was annoyed that we had to sit in the back at the and see the. It was
I wouldn't have been.
I still had a ton of fun, and it was great. And we had a good time, and the show was awesome. Like. Truly, that did not change anything about how I felt about that night. In fact, it was a good story to tell, and we're still like great friends, and it bonded us a little, you know?
It does. And I think we need to keep that in mind when we feel guilty. And I'm not only just saying that to you, Cass, but like to all our listeners too. When you feel guilty for people helping you, you know, think that they might be getting something out of it too. Like when you help others, you're helping yourself, and it makes you feel good too. And like you don't want to take advantage of people. That's a totally different thing, and we don't want to. Like, we want to have our autonomy, but every so often it makes people feel good to help out, so you should let them. One time you were telling me, I love this because I remember it, we were talking about like dating, and you were like, guys like to like solve problems, or you know, like they like I don't know if that's the exact quote.
Men love a little challenge.
A little challenge. We can be their little challenge.
Well, and like sometimes we, especially,
like, it makes them feel like the hero.
Exactly.
Kind of,
like
to help.
I think a lot of times when we, as like, you know, not to make this super a singleness thing, but a lot of times when we think of ourselves single ladies trying to find someone, right? Like we always like, oh man, are we bringing too much to the table? Are we too needy?
Right.
But if you don't need any help, they're gonna get bored, right?
If you don't need any help, you don't need anyone.
You don't need
period.
anyone.
And we all need each other as humans for different reasons. We all need each other.
And this is
they need help just like we do, except in different ways.
And we can meet their needs in different ways, right? We can, you know, like I can bake for a man too, right? Like,
or like, especially their emotional needs, because a lot of men actually like don't always have that.
That's so true. Met. You can be there for them, or you can
be there for them emotionally, whatever. And like, I didn't mean to like necessarily pivot this to dating. No.
I think that's a really fair point.
I think about that a lot of when you said that of like, hey, sometimes somebody likes a bit of a challenge, or like they want to feel like they're helping. I'm like, you're right. Like that.
People want to feel needed, not just men, but people really want to feel like they're being helpful. And, you know, not that your needs are exclusively giving them a purpose, but it does make people want to be around, especially in a romantic sense, because they're helping you, you're giving them something in return as well. Like, it is a little bit of an exchange, but it's also that, like, that dependence we need on each other. Otherwise, we would live, like, alone in the jungles and not need anyone.
Right. And America and, like, the whole West in general is very, like, independently based.
I'm so over, like, I'm an independent person, silly. But I'm so over hyper-individualism. Like,
it's really, like...
We don't need
each other. Communities need to help each other to live. Come on. Like, literally. And I say that as a person who doesn't talk to my neighbors, okay?
I know, me too.
LOL. I say that as the most, like, introverted. I'm kidding. I do like
my neighbors, but
I have a few that I like, but the others, but anyway, but
like, everyone has a community, right? Like, you have a community, even if it's not like your actual physical community, right? Like,
it might not be your actual neighbor, but you have a neighbor in the sense of like a person that is in your community. And depending on what people's love languages are too. Some people's love languages literally are acts of service, and that is what they love. Truly, that is how they show love.
Oh my
gosh, that is what they want to do. And that's always been an attractive feature to me. I love, like, Luke from Gilmore Girls, and I love his character because he's always dropping everything to do acts of service for Lorelai. If people haven't seen this, you're probably like, who are these people? But, you know, it's just one of the main couples on the show. And, you know, he'll, like, drive her places when she needs it. He'll come to her house and fix things when she needs it. And I think that always was just really sweet for me to watch because I like acts of service. And I don't feel that my love language giving is acts of service, probably because it's a little harder for us to give that, but we can give other things. We can give words. Yeah, we can give words of affirmation. We can give gifts. We can give all the other ones, basically. Physical touch, whatever. So yeah.
I think, there are so many ways to give back where you don't have to feel like a wee little baby. That sometimes it does feel like that when you can't drive, especially, but people give in so many ways, and it just takes a little bit of creativity, and maybe you'll find something that's even more meaningful to someone in your life that you want to give back to in some way. But don't forget, like, you're not treating someone like a transaction, but you are valuing them for their time because they are giving you their time.
And I would acknowledge it. I would still thank people like, hey, thanks so much for the ride. You don't have to be obnoxious about it. Like, oh, I'm so sorry that you're always having to drive me everywhere, blah, blah, blah.
Right. You don't have to be self-deprecating about it.
No, but acknowledge it. I still acknowledge it and say, hey, thanks so much for picking me up. Like, I really appreciate that. And it's, you know, especially for the people that offer time and time again. I do really appreciate that. And I want to let them know. I want to acknowledge that and not just expect it. I never want to expect it. And even for the people that often drive me, I still will say to them, like, hey, are you able to pick me up for this? Because I don't want to expect it and be like, so you're getting me at 5 o'clock, right? Like, So, right. Yeah.
And even, like, I always appreciate when people offer, and sometimes I will, like, when people offer a ride and they've offered a lot, sometimes I'll just say, no, thank you, but I appreciate the offer, and I will take them up on the next one, right? So, you know, you want them to know that you can still do it on your own, but you like their help. You're not rejecting their help.
No. Just every once in a while, you might change it up a bit to not be so reliant. You know?
Exactly. Just to show, like, hey, don't worry, like, if you're not around, you don't have to be, like, super concerned that I'm going to be, like, stranded, you know?
Well, and I think one of our biggest fears with that is people not inviting us to things because they feel like, oh, I'll have to go pick them up or whatever. Yes. We don't want that. Yes. We do not want that. So we want them to know we can get there even if they're not able to come pick us up. and they should still invite us anyway, you know.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's so good, and I feel like this episode has also just made me really appreciative of all the people who, like, have reached out and been helpful in some way or other. It's just
and
really
appreciative
lovely.
of all the ways that the creative ways that we are able to feel like we're helping. And actually, okay, take a shot if you have one.
Molly Burke.
I knew it. Molly Burke very recently uploaded a video about pretty much this very topic, and it's actually not where we got the idea. We were already talking.
We were just talking about it one night, but
we came up with it first. No, I don't know. But
we're creative too.
Molly specifically was talking about her relationship with her boyfriend specifically, but she was talking about how a lot of the public say, "Oh, you're so lucky to have him. Like, what do you do for him? He does so much for you, that kind of thing." So she was kind of answering that question of like, what does she bring to the table? Like, how does she? And it's basically a similar thing, but I do recommend that video. She touches on different things that we haven't touched on here that I think is still relevant to the topic. So
I will try to link to that in the show notes.
It was really good
because it's worth seeing, and if nothing else, if you're in the same position as her or us, where you are often getting a lot of very tangible and obvious help from people, it can be a source of I guess, validation that you are still contributing in some way, and good ideas of how to continue to contribute and not just feel like you're taking advantage of someone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So there are a lot of good ways to do that. And, I think at the end of the day, if you're listening, hopefully you got some ideas from us, but also, we don't want you to feel like a burden, and we say that as we sometimes even feel like one.
Absolutely.
I'll feel it myself, and then I'll tell other people like, don't feel that way. But then with yourself, you're harder. You're harder.
It's so easy to say.
You're not a burden. You are well loved by your friends and family, or they wouldn't be around.
That's true.
So they would rather have you around and drive than not have you around, is what I think.
That's very
for the
true.
most part. And the people who get annoyed with it, they don't need you.
You don't need them in your life anyway.
Or you don't need them. Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Instead of they don't need you, you don't need them.
Yeah. If someone is making you feel bad about it, even when you are trying to, give back in some way, you really don't need that. Your life is hard enough.
No. No. And like, people have bad moments sometimes. People might get frustrated, but if it's like an ongoing thing of like they are acting annoyed by you, asking
or put
for help,
out, or I've known people like that when I've asked them to even
like that.
read something that's far away,
yes.
and I don't have something, and they
yes.
just kind of sigh. Like, you don't need that.
Yes.
You don't need people
That
making
is
you
awful.
feel worse.
I've had people like that, and if it's someone really close to you and they act annoyed like one time, but they normally don't, you can say, okay, maybe they're having a bad day. But if it's an ongoing thing, we can't be having that. So no.
Know your worth.
No.
Know your worth.
Know your worth, babe.
But this has been fun.
It has been fun. We knew this episode may be a little shorter, and it was, but it's still pretty long. We're both a little sleepy, We're trying to push out 2 episodes this week. It's just, we're working, hardworking women. Okay?
We sure are. We're
because we're
pushing them
dedicated.
out. Wow.
And we also hope you're all having a lovely start to your 2025, and that you all had a great cozy holiday season.
And that you all put together your vision boards.
Yeah, we hope you put together your vision boards. Send us a message on Insta telling us your goals, and I'm being serious. We would love to hear them.
We'd love to hear that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We'll encourage
we might even
you
do another
guys.
Q&A soon, like
Ooh, that's
we totally
great
should. We would like to, I guess what I'm saying with that is we would like to hear from you all. If you want to send us a message or an email, we'd love to hear from you all.
Hello at rarewithflair.com is our email, and you can always find us on the socials at
the socials,
rare.with.flair on Insta.
Yes.
We check our DMs rather frequently, so we will see it.
Yeah, and thank you for everyone who has left a review. We haven't mentioned that in a bit.
That's true.
If you're still listening, we really appreciate ratings and reviews. We got a new one recently. I hope you saw it. I sent you a screenshot, but you were out of town.
Oh, I don't know if I did.
You've got to read it. It's the sweetest. So, we do read those. We love them. And So yeah, thank you so much, and please leave
Yes.
that if you're enjoying the show.
And if you ever want to contribute to our podcast to help us break even with the costs of operation, you can always check out our website, rarewithflair.com, and we have some links on there on our menu and on our homepage that you can give to our little Buy Me a Coffee. It just means that you can give like $5, and it really helps us be able to make our show more sustainable.
I'm laughing because this whole episode has been about us buying
like
people coffee. And now we're like, hey, you want to give back? Buy us a coffee. We love buying coffee over here at Rare with Flair, clearly.
We do. It's such an easy thing to do.
It is. It is. So yeah, that was so lovely. We love you all.
We love you, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Bye.